와, 멋있다. 뭘 도와드릴까요?
고마워. 렉스 산책시켜야 하는데. 다음엔 재밌는 얘기 들려줘. 최고야. 렉스 산책시켜야 하는데. 이제 가는 거야?
그 거대 늑대 괴물나무랑 싸우더라. 근데 괴물 뿌리에 맞고 크게 다쳐서 결국 꼬리 내리고 도망가 버렸어.
안녕.
반가워. 같이 가보자고. 좋아. 이제 우리가 여기 접수하자. 동료가 왔네. 잘 됐다. 같이 싸우자. 우리가 왔다.
여기 모두 고생 많았어. 짜릿했어. 다들 고생.
짜릿했어. 다들 고생.
여기 놈들을 같이
동료가
혼내주자.
왔네. 잘 됐다. 같이 싸우자.
대단해. 우린 정말 최고의 팀이야.
같은 거더라고. 그렇다. 체감 생각보다 되게 잘 돼요. 나는
훌륭해요. 우와. 잘 됐다. 장비 관리는 꾸준히 해야 하는 거 알지? 조심해서 가. 그게 아닌데. 언제든 또 와요. 잘했어요. 잘 가요. 잘했어요. 아유, 음식 냄새가 좋죠? 바빠도 식사.
식사는 거르지.
아이들이 어울릴 것 같아가지고.
This is objectively the best way to meal prep for the week if you have some self-respect. You know those sad broccoli, chicken, and brown rice type meal preps where you eat the same thing over and over again? I mean, imagine you're 4 days in and you're having the same exact boring meal, only a little drier. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a meal prepper. Or at least I wasn't a meal prepper until I purchased a ridiculous amount of deli containers. Way too many deli containers, do not judge me. These things are your strongest weapon when it comes to meal prepping and cooking in general. And it's what restaurants use and what Jeremy Allen White uses in The Bear. So that's enough to convince me. Let me explain the philosophy here. Essentially, instead of prepping meals, we're gonna prep individual ingredients and building blocks that are gonna make assembling meals during the week extremely easy and fun, leading to no two meals being the same. You have both the convenience and the freedom and creativity. Plus, you get to feel like a pro chef every time you pop open that lid. By the way, the reason I'm wearing this tape is because I injured my wrist recently, which will be the least of my concerns by the end of this video. Let's start the clock and see how much time this will take me. Okay, the first thing I'll do is roast some veggies. This is pretty boring. Recently, I've been a pretty healthy boy, losing some weight actually, and veggies are a big priority for me. I need that freaking fiber. By the way, I've been reading a bunch of comments and even DMs about me gaining weight, which... come on, man. It's crazy how some people find it necessary to comment on someone else's body like there isn't a real person at the receiving end of that. I would really like to not care about all that, but My weight has been a big struggle for me my whole life, and it just really gets to me, man. Made me feel like shit on multiple occasions, I'm not gonna lie. Especially when I'm actively trying to lose weight, it just really doesn't help. Anyways, let's make some rice. And I'm not making brown rice because it sucks. I don't know what it is that bodybuilders love so much about alternatively colored white carbs. Like brown rice, brown bread, sweet potato. Have some fun, guys. Like, it doesn't make that big of a difference. Plus, it has a way better texture. I specifically mess with jasmine rice. That is my jam. And of course, I'm using my trusty rice cooker because it makes perfect rice without me having to think about it at all. And I can reheat this in a microwave, make fried rice down the line, do whatever I want with it, but really those are kind of the only options. And speaking of bodybuilding meals, let's make some chicken breast. And my plan with these chicken breasticles is to make them into something I can have cold, out the fridge, literally scoop it out of the container, and that thing is chicken salad. You guys know I love chicken salad. I will first poach my breast in simmering water, which, trust me, if you do it correctly, will lead to a way juicier breast than just drying it in the pan. While that is resting, maybe the most essential part of this process is the mise en place, which is the fancy way of saying prepping raw ingredients that are going to be used in cooking down the line. And here you need to keep in mind what you use most and is most annoying to do when you actually cook. For me, it's definitely onions. So I took a bunch of onions and I was planning to slice them, but then I had the brilliant idea of using a mandolin instead of a knife because it's probably faster, easier, and it leads to Michelin star thin slices like these. But please, if you do this, I beg you, you need to use the included guard. Do not raw dog the mandolin. That's stupid because the pain in the ass to continue playing. I am objectively one of the biggest stupids. This time I use my freaking gun. Yup, that's me. And yeah, it was a pain in the ass to continue prepping this shit. It's crazy how a little finger cut can just completely ruin my mood. I'm not strong enough to deal with this shit. I did bell pepper, scallions, and a bunch of fresh herbs. It's a mix of parsley, cilantro, and dill. But I was honestly kind of sick of everything at this point. In the meantime, our chicken breast is finished resting, and now we can shred it. And now I can use the stuff I prepped before to prep even more stuff, which is pretty cool. I was also gonna add capers, but I forgot. You should add capers. And also, if I wasn't trying to minimize the calories like a beta, I would add way more mayo to this, plus maybe some dried cranberries or something like that. But for now, this is perfectly fine. I can scoop this onto tortillas and make a straight 1-minute lunch wrap, for example. That freaking mandolin completely took me out for the day, so I had to come back the next day with a reinforced bandage, ready to prep some more shit. And I was excited because I recently purchased this guy, a pressure cooker. It really seemed to me like a gimmicky telemarketing product, but I've heard some good things about it, so I wanted to try it out. And I went completely lazy mode, just threw everything in there, no browning, no flavor building, no nothing. I even put in some overall rub, which I don't even know what that is. I just saw it in the store and thought it sounded funny. Not a sponsor, but I would totally take that bag. Just saw it in the store and thought it sounded funny. Not a sponsor, but I would totally take that bag. Speaking of which, hey everyone, I am Kevin's video editor, Kevin, and I frequently struggle with my mental health. Mainly is not to get help, isn't all you have to be with your third good option, cooked chicken good. Guys, the chicken was actually beautifully cooked. The meat was falling apart. I didn't really believe. Initially, I didn't really believe in this device, but honestly, I changed my mind. Somehow it has that slow cooked quality without actually slow cooking, which I don't really get how. I assume it's some science stuff. While that cools down, let's work on our third and final protein. And I'm sure of this is based on sugar. And just put it in faster, and they're almost by the lunch I went to. And I also salted aside, and that's simply put tomatoes. I love tomatoes, specifically salted tomatoes that have sat in salt and their own juices for a while. And I also like a touch of vinegar in there. I really feel like that salted tomato taste hits in a way that nothing else in the world hits. These are quite shit off my face. I think no human should sing them. So now we have 3 proteins, but you may have realized a very important thing is missing. There's no way I was gonna go but you will make your meals exciting every single time. So now we have 3 proteins, But you may have realized a very important thing is missing. There's no way I was gonna go through this week without beans. I think no human should unless you're allergic or something. I'm going very basic here, just making a bean salad, load it up with capers for that briny hit, and that's pretty much it. And I'm just now noticing somehow most things I make fit perfectly into that container. It's pretty wild. For my final side, I had some potatoes, and I didn't want to overthink it. Just chopped them up, and I wanted to put this pressure cooker to another test. How well can it steam these potatoes? It comes with a steaming rack, so I just dumped my potatoes in there, pressed a couple buttons, and that was it. Felt the most almost 5 hours. I think you could easily knock this time down to 2.5 hours or so, and I think it's super worth it. Just look how easy it is to assemble an amazing meal. 1 minute, healthy, delicious, exciting, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. I don't know what else to say. Bye.
찾으실 물건이 있나요? 다음에 또 찾아주세요. 일이 끝나면 뮤트 연습을 안녕히 가세요.
What?
The truth about kudzu, America's most invasive plant, is that it may just be one of the most significant and versatile sources of wild food that we have here. It can be used as an emergency food and as a long-term staple wild food that is shelf stable. Almost every part of it is edible, the tender shoots in early spring, as well as the flowers later on into summer. But today, we are talking about the tuberous roots, which contain one of the highest quality starches in the entire world. I'm serious. Michelin star chefs will actually seek out kudzu starch specifically because it has amazing properties and it far outperforms other common starches for things like frying, for thickening soups, for making desserts, and some other crazy recipes that we're going to explore together. In addition, traditionally kudzu is regarded as a healthful, vitalizing food in East Asia where it's native to, and it is very nutritive. They've known about and used this plant for thousands of years, and I think that it's high time that we here in North America take some notes. However, If you were going to try to buy kudzu starch online, you would pay a very hefty premium, with it costing over 8 times as much as cornstarch. So forget about that, because extracting the precious starch from the roots is way easier than most people make it out to be. I've now spent dozens of hours with this wild food, honing my methods, and in this video I'm going to show you absolutely everything that you need to know to forage for kudzu starch. So let's go over our agenda today. First, we will learn how to identify the plant even when it's completely dormant. You'll learn why that's important in a second. Second, we're going to learn where, when, and how to find the root-bearing crowns in the middle of a massive tangled field. Third, we'll go over how to gather the roots out of the ground. Fourth, how to extract, process, and clarify the starch at home. Fifth, I will show you how to cook with it and some amazing recipes where kudzu really shine. And finally, this one right here, I'm going to show you how to distinguish them from a very important, potentially dangerous lookalike that could be sneakily kind of hidden amongst the kudzu vines that you do not want to mistake it for or even really be digging around. So with that, let's begin. And remember, as usual, you don't have to worry about memorizing all the details I'm going to show you in this video because I've put it all in a downloadable guide just for you. Okay, let's talk about identifying this plant when they don't have any leaves on them and they're completely dormant. The most obvious detail, by far, would be the growth habit. I mean, just looking at this field in front of me, it is a solid block of tangled kudzu that has completely taken over, and I don't know much else that can really do that. So that's a big giveaway. But beyond that, the way in which kudzu grows and spreads, it really likes to kind of twine and twist around everything around it, including itself. But there are a few other very distinctive, more detailed characteristics that we can be looking for to be absolutely sure that we have found kudzu. So here's a big grouping of younger vines, and you can't quite tell this from further away, but if you get up close, you can see that they have a bunch of very fine, fuzzy hairs growing along them. And those are actually quite irritating if they get directly on your skin, which is why when I'm handling them, I'm always wearing these gloves right here. As those vines become more mature, they will become a little bit darker in color overall, and they'll lose those hairs. I would call the color something like a gray-brown or so. But they will have a bunch of very obvious light raised bumps on them that are called lenticels. The leaf scars on kudzu are large and relatively obvious, especially if you're looking for them right below these leaf scars or these branching scars, and along the stem they will be alternating. And you won't always find these, especially later on into the dormancy of this plant, but here are the bean-like seed pods of kudzu, and they are just extremely distinctive. They have a very dark outer coating on them and an extremely hairy, almost woolly set of hairs on the outside that are kind of like almost a yellow-orange color to them. They really, really stand out if you do find them. That's it. That's how to recognize kudzu. Relatively straightforward, I would say. But don't forget that later on in the video, we do need to at least be aware of that lookalike that can be hidden amongst the kudzu vines. Now the question is where, and more importantly, when should we be looking for kudzu? Well, this plant really needs sun in order to thrive. So you want to be looking for them in nice open areas, at the edges of woods, not deep into the woods, which you likely already knew. If you have them in your area, you've probably seen them before. They are everywhere. You do want to be aware, though, that in some kudzu populations, they will spray them very heavily in an attempt to control them. A good litmus test for determining if that's going on or not is if the spot that you were in was fully leafed out in the summer or even the late fall, chances are it wasn't sprayed. The range for kudzu is kind of like the greater southern part of Central and Eastern North America. If you don't live in its range, I would still encourage you to at least watch the section that I do on starch extraction, because that applies to things far beyond this kudzu, like acorns, cattails, even things from the grocery store like potato. I just think in general it's a really good technique for everyone to know. So when should we actually be going out to gather the roots of kudzu for the purpose of getting the starch? And I've hinted at it a couple times already. It's really any time that the plant is dormant. That's generally going to be from the late autumn all the way to the early spring before it begins to leaf out. And that's for two main reasons. Number one, when the plant is dormant, it's going to take all of its energy and it's going to be storing it in the roots in the form of the starch, which is what we're after, so we'll get a much higher yield. But there is another very practical reason, which is before the plant gets hit with very cold temperatures to knock it into dormancy. The vines will be very green and alive, they'll be very supple, and they'll be very flexible, and pulling them back to look for the crown, which is something that you're going to be doing a whole lot, is going to be exceedingly difficult. So we want to wait until all the leaves die back and it really goes completely dormant. So it's all going to be much more brittle and much easier to work with. That being said, the easiest time to actually scout for kudzu locations that you're going to find where you're going to gather the roots later on is not when they're dormant, but actually when they're flowering. Because the flowers, the blossoms are extremely showy. They're also just incredibly sweet and fragrant. You can make flower syrup from jellies with them as well. And you can spot them from very, very far away. Again, the flowers bloom a little bit later on into the summer. So here is what all the windows for kudzu would look like on my interactive borders calendar, which has similar timing windows for dozens of other amazing wild fruit species. But now, let's talk about finding those crowns. Here is one of the crowns right now. These are kind of like the origin point, the point at which all of the above ground
SIVs that allegedly charge and discharge 10 times faster than lithium-ion batteries. With an estimated lifespan of 50,000 cycles, they sound very promising. But there's a catch. Natron hasn't released weight-based energy density figures, which is typically a weak spot for SIVs. A 2022 Chemical Engineering News article put their energy density at just 70 watt-hours per kilogram, on the very low end of the sodium-ion spectrum. While that's fine for stationary storage applications like data centers and telecoms, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence in their EV ambitions. What really makes Natron worth discussing, though, is its push for full-scale commercial production. The company is building its own sodium-ion gigafactory in Edgecombe County, North Carolina, with a planned production capacity of 24 gigawatt-hours. And this isn't Natron's first rodeo. Last year, it opened a smaller sodium battery factory in Holland, Michigan, currently the only one of its kind in the US, at least until the larger facility comes online. At full capacity, the Holland plant is expected to produce about 600 megawatts of sodium-ion batteries annually. It's unclear how much it's producing right now, but Natron says battery shipments will begin this June. Though SIVs are finally coming into their own, researchers haven't stopped pushing the envelope. Over in the US, scientists from Dinka Lab have developed a sodium-ion battery using a new organic cathode made from, I'm not even gonna try to say this because it would short circuit my brain. I'm just gonna call it TAC. So what's an organic cathode and what does it do for a battery? Well, here organic means that a cathode is made from readily available non-metallic elements, stuff like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Lithium-ion battery anodes are often made from similar materials using graphite, but making the cathode organic as well is a big deal. Normally, cathodes rely on metals that are scarce and difficult to mine, like cobalt. A fully organic battery where both the anode and the cathode are metal-free could be a game changer. So why aren't all batteries using organic cathodes already? Well, the problem is that they tend to dissolve into the electrolyte, degrading both the electrolyte and the cathode. But according to the Dinka Group, TAC is completely insoluble, highly conductive, and boasts a high energy density. In fact, it could rival traditional cobalt-based cathodes at roughly 1/3 the cost. TAC was originally developed for lithium-ion batteries, but the results sparked a new idea. What if they applied it to sodium-ion batteries? Since one of sodium's biggest drawbacks is the lower energy density, why not address that weakness while keeping all the cost and sustainability benefits? Adapting the cathode for sodium batteries took a year of refinement, as the researchers had to tweak design principles that didn't translate easily from lithium-ion technology. But the results surprised them. In the words of lead author Tianyang Chen, the binder we chose, carbon nanotubes, facilitates the mixing of TAC crystallites and carbon black particles, leading to an homogeneous electrode. The carbon nanotubes closely wrap around TAC crystallites and interconnect with them. Both of these factors promote electron transport within the electrode bulk, enabling an almost 100% active material utilization, which leads to almost theoretical maximum capacity. Now, unlike the other sodium batteries we've been discussing, this breakthrough is still in the lab. There's no telling when or if it will be commercialized, pass third-party tests, or overcome all the usual hurdles. But it's still an exciting development for both lithium and sodium batteries. And for what it's worth, the Dinka Group's initial research was funded by Lamborghini. So if this tech does make it to market, a luxury automaker is already in line, ready to capitalize on it. While the future looks bright for SIVs, beware. Just because it glitters doesn't mean it's, well, salt. In November of 2023, Swedish manufacturer Northvolt unveiled its own sodium battery, boasting a respectable 160 watt-hours per kilogram energy density. It's respectable, but not exactly rock salt solid. The company had already made waves with its nickel manganese cobalt formula, but like many others, it aimed to expand. After launching its first gigafactory in Sweden and setting up additional facilities in Poland and Germany, Northvolt set its sights on North America, planning a battery factory in Montreal. But by the following November, Northvolt had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Since this is a restructuring type of bankruptcy, it's not as dire as it sounds. Northvolt says its Swedish operations will continue as usual, and its German and North American subsidiaries, funded separately, aren't affected. I'm not an international corporate financial law channel, so I won't pretend to know what all the implications are, but Chapter 11 is complicated, or so I'm told. On one hand, Northvolt claims this voluntary reorganization will give them access to $145 million in cash collateral and $100 million in debtor-in-possession financing. On the other hand, bankruptcy, no matter the type, doesn't exactly inspire confidence. So is this just a financial financing or a sign of deeper trouble? Guess we'll find out. There are still some lingering issues with sodium batteries. Despite what CATL, BYD, and Natron are saying, I remain skeptical about its role in EVs. The biggest hurdle is energy density. Sodium-ion battery packs simply don't pack as much power per pound as lithium does. And while they use cheaper materials, their lower energy density means the cost per unit of stored energy actually
푸짐하게 다 썼다고? 미하 안녕하세요.
좋았어. 좋았어. 꼭 좀 부탁할게. 누가 대신 일해주면 진짜 좋겠다. 다음엔 재밌는 얘기 들려줘.
방송 안 하는 사람들이 다 여기 켜져 있어. 다음엔 재밌는 얘기 들려줘. 저거 뭐야? 에라이. 아니 이건 자동 돌리는 게임에서 이런 게 있냐? 속도 줄이는 방법 없어? 얘가 알아서 튀어나간대. 어디 갔어? NPC가 사라졌어. NPC가 퀘스트상으로 사라진 이후에는 언제 뭐 이걸 돌릴 수도 없고. NPC가 퀘스트상 사라지면 이거 제작 레벨 올릴 수 없다는 거 현실이야? 퀘스트를 배우는 걸 특정 NPC에게만 살 수 있으면 좀 그건 좀 예전 마비노기도 그러긴 한데 제작대 레벨을 만들어가지고 이러는 거죠. 뭔가 이상한 제약을 두길 너무 좋아하는 것 같아요.
언제든 찾아오세요.
찾으실 물건이 있나요? 잊으신 물건은 없으시죠? 보관할 물건들이 많네. 안녕히 가세요.
고마워요. 손님이 부쩍 늘었는걸? 다음에 봬요. 예?
뭐 이런 물물가
좋은 거리였어.
그게 아닌데. 바빠도 식사.
이거 어텀이 없어.
반갑소. 이런. 내 물건이 도움이 되길.
대충 할 만큼 했고 가보겠습니다. 신기하구나. 굳이 이거 그냥 틀어놓고 수집시키는 게 수집시켜놓기 딱 좋긴. 요즘 모바일 게임이
아.